Hello and welcome to another new episode of Learning Simplified. In this tutorial, we will try to customize a table. Now, in the previous tutorial, we had discussed about creating a vertical list item, and there we had promised to create another tutorial on how to create a horizontal list item. But instead, we have determined to go for this table customization process to know how to create our own table and to customize it into our web project. This is a very essential one because in many cases we had to go for this HTML inline elements to customize our table, which is frankly speaking a little bit of tiresome and boring thing because you have to repeat all those properties again and again in case of every number of tables that you have created. So that is why it is a very essential thing to know how to customize your own table with the aid of CSS instead of using it with the aid of HTML inline elements. Now, as an example, we can see that here comes a particular table. Instead of a list item, here practically a table has been created which has been customized with the aid of the CSS option. So in the first case, all we need to do, we will see how to create a table, and in case if you are not sure, you may switch back to our HTML tutorial, the crash course on HTML tutorial for beginners, and there you can see we have discussed how to create our own table with the aid of HTML and how to customize it with the aid of inline elements. But here we will create that table first into our HTML page. We will first customize it with the aid of inline elements, and then we will be reverting back to CSS and we will see how to customize the table with the aid of CSS. Here comes the stylesheet.css. This is the first thing that we have creating here, and this is the index.html. Now in this particular case we can see that this is the mother wrapper div, as we can see over here. Now if we create another div known as for sale table holder, so we have created a div with the class name of table holder, and the very first thing all we are doing now, inside this particular div class table holder, we will be now creating our own table. Now this is the basic structure of the table. You know it quite well that we have created our table, and this is the exact syntax of creating it. So if we now create here row, this is the first row. We'll now copy it and we'll pasting it 5 more times here. There it goes. Apple, change them all, banana, mango. So we know that this is in order a 1:5 table that has been created over here. This is table, declaration of table. Here goes this row element, and these are the column elements here. All those things, those are columns. Now if we just press Ctrl S and get back to our project and reload, we can see that this is the scenario that has been created so far. Now we haven't defined any kind of specification here. So if we now go for this specification, we'll see for this one, this is the declaration of the table with and width of 980 pixels. Then we are specifying that this cell padding equals to, we are placing it to 0. First of all, place it to 0, but you can change it anything anytime. Now for the time being, all we are going to do, we are getting back to our project and reloading, and we can see that the table has been created so far. We have defined all those specs inside, and we can see that here comes the exact scenario. So here comes the table which has a single row and 5 columns over here. Now in case if we want to make a border over here, so all we could do, produce a border of 1. Now if we get back to our project and reload, we can see that here comes the complete scenario of the table now. So the table has been created here with a cell spacing of 0 and a cell padding of 0. So what if we now provide a cell spacing of 10 peaks here, and we can see that here will be the result. This will be the result right into here. Now we can see that in every cases, whatever possibility, whatever customization we have to make, we have to go through these tags, and inside we can see that we have to provide those inline elements. If we now get back into our project, we will see that all those text alignments, those are practically in this extreme left position. So what if we want to keep them into floating into or being aligned into the central position of these individual cells? So what will be the outcome? If we get back here, we will now have to align them. So tr, if we now provide here align for the time being, this is practically the shortest possible thing that can ever be done over here. We have practically aligned them into the central position by aligning all those contents into the row position. On the other hand, what we could have done here, we could have individually state the situation here. If we put them for say this first steady alignment, we can see that the first cell, it is been shifted towards its extreme left. So we can see that all those things, those could be practically done by adjusting all those inline elements over here, and with this process we can practically create our table, and it is a quite acceptable process. There's absolutely no problem with it. Now what if we want all those properties to be appearing in case of another table? For say if we now create another table here, and if we now want to provide the same exact properties, those been observed over here, those will be followed in here too. In this second case, in this second table, so what will be the scenario? We have to create all those inline elements inside those tags repeatedly, occurring repeatedly into the second table, and that will be a problem, because in many cases we will see that as the time passes by, if we increase our coding, we will see that this could lead into a serious possible error for our page. So that is why we won't be going for that. The safest way here will be if we now create all those properties inside our stylesheet.css and apply them to a particular table, then that will be the exact method of working with HTML and CSS together. We will be now putting all those properties. We will now transfer all those properties into the style sheet element, into the style sheet page, and we will use those particular attributes or properties for different tables on the same page. So without wasting our time, let's now get back to custom style sheet. But first of all, let's remove all those inline elements, those we have created so far, like this one, td. Okay, so everything is now back into order. If we now reload, we can see that here it is the scenario, so we won't be talking about it. All we are now going to do, we are going to copy it, and let's get back to stylesheet.css.